listening to the Author Inside You podcast, a weekly podcast designed to motivate you to finish writing a book, choose a publisher, and have your work build an audience. Keep listening if you're looking to get propelled into the next chapter of your life. And now, it's the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.
Hello and welcome to the Author Inside You podcast. I'm Matt Rafferty.
And I'm Leah Rafferty.
Today our guest is Keith Guernsey, author of Father and Sons, Sports and Life. Keith lives near Gainesville, Georgia with his wife Susan and his dog Harley. Welcome, Keith. Thanks for joining us today.
And thank you for having me, Matt. Thank you for having me, Leah. Pleasure to be here.
Well, we're very happy that you're joining us. So I see that you're a huge Boston sports fan. So how'd you land in Georgia?
Guilty as charged. 11 years ago, my wife got transferred with her job. She worked for a moving company, which was fortuitous since they moved us down here. And that took me from 12 miles from Fenway Park, a lifelong Red Sox fan, to 1,000 miles away from Fenway Park. Uh-oh. And as therapy, I started writing this book.
Oh, okay.
And with Susan's encouragement and inspiration, I throw down a page here, a paragraph there, and a lot of it was memories and remembrances of games and games that I played as a player, hockey, football, baseball, and coached, and then games in later years that I attended of the four major Boston sports teams. And 3 years ago, when we moved here, Susan said essentially, I've been hearing you talk about this book for 15 years. Now finish it. We're retired. You have the time. So I did.
Great.
Excellent. So tell us about your family, since the word sons is in the title. I'm gathering
Yes.
You have some children.
I do. Just to take a step back, this was, or isn't, I should say, is an ode to my late great father, Gordon, who inspired me. He was the perfect sports parent. He attended every game, no matter where in the country I played. He sat in the coldest ice rinks you could ever imagine, and he was the perfect sports parent. And being involved, being supportive, but never crossing the line, and being one of those parents who yells at the coach or gives the umpire a hard time because they thought it was a strike and it was called a ball, etc. And so it was an ode to him, but then it became a legacy to my son Keith and my new grandson Harry. I tried to instill the values of good sportsmanship in my son Keith that my dad instilled in me.
Okay.
Oh, that's great. So father and son, so you're both the father and son in the title.
Exactly. Yes.
Great.
Exactly.
And so you started writing the book 15 years ago? 15 years before you published it?
Yeah, about 15 years ago. And I wasn't intent on writing a book. People ask me, Matt, how I became a writer. And I typically shrug my shoulders and say, I don't have the faintest idea. I just started putting down my memories of, as I say, games that I played in, games that I coached in, games that I went to. And it kind of evolved from there with Susan's inspiration and encouragement into a book. And when I finished the book, I had four goals. I wanted to finish it, which I did. I wanted to self-publish it, which I did. I wanted to get it on Amazon, which I did, and sell a copy, which I did.
And from what we see, you have been very, very successful on the Amazon book charts, correct?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I saw that on the humor and sports listing. Today when we're recording it, you're number 567. That's unbelievable.
Well, it had actually risen all the way up to number 41 in that category.
And this is through self-publishing. That is wonderful. So can you tell us a little bit about your self-publishing process?
Yeah, when I first finished it and I started to explore the options, I chose self-publishing because you have more control over the entire process. And I checked a lot of other self-publishers, and then I kind of came across CreateSpace. And CreateSpace has been amazingly helpful. As I mentioned, I'm technically not the most savvy person in the world, a little bit of old school kind of guy. And CreateSpace has been great, and they walked me through the whole process. They've been very patient. They helped me pick out the cover, and it became very advantageous to use CreateSpace because they're also an Amazon company. When you publish on CreateSpace, it goes on CreateSpace. 2 days later, it goes on Amazon. Then you have the option of putting it in Kindle format. Then you have the option of going with KDP Select. So it opens up a whole raft of possibilities to distribute it and market it in various locations.
That's very cool. So that way it's print on demand and it's available on Kindle.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And do you sell any copies anywhere else besides Amazon?
Yeah, I go what they refer to in my group on Facebook as going wide. In other words, you can find my book on Street Libs, on Smashwords, on iTunes, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, pretty much anywhere.
And how did you do that? How did you go wide?
You register, create an account, and send them the file. It's a very simple process. The most important of those is a company called Smashwords, because they have very wide distribution, and it's also the entry point into libraries all across the country. In other words, if you go to your local library and say, I want to get my book into your library, they will say, we buy through Smashwords.
Wow. We've never heard that. That's great.
A great tip for us. Thank you. I'll put a link to that in the show notes so that we can all find it. Excellent.
And Smashwords, this is acts as a master distributor to Baker and Taylor and Kobo and Scribd and folks like that. So once you get it on their in their premium catalog, you're pretty much set up for some nice sales.
Good, opens many doors for you. It sounds like
it absolutely does. Yes.
It sounds like you're very happy with the self-publishing. Did you run into any dead ends, or was everything smooth sailing?
None whatsoever. The only issues I had were pretty much my lack of technical knowledge on, say, Microsoft Word and Adobe. But I happened to come across this young lady who worked for CreateSpace who was as patient as the day is long. And as a matter of fact, after she helped me get all this done and get the book published, I sent an email to Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, touting her great work and letting him know that she was phenomenal.
Great.
That's very nice of you to do that.
So they have people there to help you if you have any problems.
Absolutely. They're very patient, very helpful. They do everything they can to help you be successful.
Yeah, because I would think for many people, it's just overwhelming. Okay, I have this book. Now what do I do?
Yeah, it can get overwhelming deciding if you want to go KDP Select or you want to go wide, and which self-publisher to choose, because there are dozens of them. I just happen to, I won't say I did some research, but I just happened to kind of luck into CreateSpace, and for me that was a phenomenal choice. And I've had a lot of fellow authors who say the same thing.
Excellent. So, Keith, what are you doing to promote your book?
Well, social media, all over the place. If you type in the title of the book or my name, you'll see me pop up pretty much everywhere. Twitter's been most successful. Facebook, and not just posting on Facebook. I've come to the realization that you can't just say, please buy my book. You have to
engage.
Have some variation of, your message. I use what I call teaser marketing. I take a line from my book. I say, I am more convinced than ever that, ... And then I put, for more, please see page 127 or whatever page. And then I put the link. And I actually had a neighbor here who said, what's after the I am more convinced than ever that? I said, well, you have to read the book.
Yeah.
Said, okay.
That's the idea, right?
I just downloaded it. So
Great.
It worked. But in addition to that, it's not just promoting on social media. That's a big component. But podcasts such as this, author interviews, book launches, book signings, just talking your book up wherever you go. I mean, for me, and you'll find this pretty unusual, I sell at least a book a week in the hot tub here.
Oh, that's good.
I have a captive audience.
Okay.
And when you meet a new person, the natural first question after your names is, where are you from? When I find out they're from New England, I pounce. And I don't say, I don't start the conversation off by saying, please buy my book.
Yes.
I explain my background and sports background, and and then I go into what I've done since I've been here, and they say, I'm curious. I think I'll take a look. And it works. It works for me. Passing out business cards, joining author groups, hitting the local library.
Excellent.
So being very active.
Yeah, I think we need to explain a little bit that it's not just a hot tub. You live in a community of active adults. That's how you referred to it before? We talked about this before we started recording. So all of a sudden you just said you sell it in the hot tub. People are probably wondering, what's the guy doing?
No, it's a communal 1,000-person active adult community, and it's a community hot tub. And it's nothing more exotic than that. I mean,
So what about public appearances? Are you doing? I think you mentioned doing book signings.
Yeah, I did. I haven't really got started too much on that, but I did a book signing. It's a sports-based book, and very fortuitously, a sports bar and grill opened up down the street. And I asked the owner, he said, sure. He put my name up on the neon sign, and he gave me a spot. And it was extremely successful. As a matter of fact, I ran out of copies. But
wow, that's
I was
wonderful.
give people my card and say, you can go to the website and buy it there.
Wow, that is great. So maybe you should look for another sports bar nearby.
Yeah, well, that's in the plans. That's
And what about the people back in Boston? What has been their reaction?
They love it. They love it, especially the chapter on deflategate, which is where I got my 15 minutes of fame.
Right. So how did that happen?
We don't have enough time for me to tell you the entire story, but my name was all over the news and the sports radio talk shows, because the federal judge read my letter to him into the permanent court record file in deflategate.
Wow, that's great.
Defending Tom Brady.
Well, that was a good publicity for your book, I bet.
Yeah.
Right.
It went wild after that.
When you were writing your book, did you have any stumbling blocks? I guess you did, because it was a 15-year process, but what were your stumbling blocks?
Well, in the beginning, I didn't really get too serious. I just, it's just memories and remembrances of games, and I just throw, a page here, a paragraph there. I guess it wasn't really 15 years. It was, maybe 12 years of just making notes. And then the last 3 years after we retired, that's when I get serious about writing the book. Didn't really have any real stumbling blocks, just had to, get with the program and get my nose to the grindstone. And if you look on my book signing page, you'll see a Kindle right in front of me. And when I'm in my writing mode, I have my Kindle with me at all times, except when I'm asleep. 16 hours a day, and I just constantly jotting down notes.
Okay.
And form it into a book.
Excellent idea. So this is your second book. Are you working on a third one?
Well, I am working on a third one. I'm not at liberty to divulge the subject matter yet, but it's going to be a blockbuster because it features a very famous local athlete. That's why I'm not at liberty to divulge his. But you kind of have to stay tuned to my author page. I've been sworn to secrecy, but suffice to say, he's a big, big name in the sports world, and he's about to become a much bigger name on Thursday night. And you have to stay tuned to my page for more.
Well, that's fun, because look at what this one book has turned into now. Many opportunities have opened up because of this one book.
I had at least half a dozen people ask me at the Christmas party, when's book number 3 coming out? So there's a lot of interest.
Yeah. So I need to say that this podcast is going to be released the week after the NFL draft. So when Keith said Thursday, that's what he was talking about, correct? The NFL draft?
Yes, I'm sorry, that's exactly correct, yes.
Right.
Okay, now you have a story about when you were younger and you went to hockey camp.
When I was in the 8th grade, like most 8th grade young men, my 2 areas of focus were sports and girls. My schoolwork was a distant third. Dad said, I know you want to go to hockey camp. If you pass all your classes, I will pay for 2 weeks of hockey camp, figuring that there's a rink called Hockey Town 20 minutes to the north, and there's one called Loring Arena 40 minutes to the south. So I figured he wouldn't have to travel very far. And I got a brochure for a hockey camp called Halliburton Hockey Haven in Coshling Lake, Donald, Ontario, which is, if you look on a map, it's as far north on this continent as you can drive and still be on Thailand.
Oh my gosh, wow.
So, and my father was a saint, patient as the day is long, never uttered a word of complaint. And he drove essentially the equivalent of 2 round trips cross country from Boston to Los Angeles.
Wow.
Up and back, 2 weeks, 2 weeks in a row.
Wow.
And got on the ice, and I was starstruck. All my idols, Red Kelly, Ken Hodge, on and on and on. And then I almost ran into literally a crew cut 18-year-old kid the summer before he started playing with the Boston Bruins. A blonde-haired crew cut kid, Bobby Orr.
Wow.
Arguably the greatest hockey player of all time. And I'm proud and honored to say that I played with him and that he and I still stay in touch 50 years later.
Wow.
Really?
That's
wonderful. That is a great story. Wow.
We swapped, and that's why I have to write another book, because I've already sent him my 2 books, autographed copies, so I have to write another one to send it to him.
Excellent.
So once again, just by you asking your dad, this opened up a new opportunity. Just that's what people have to realize, that you have to ask, you have to try.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't, nothing ever happens. But we don't know what the possibilities are for any of us.
That's right, Leah. And I have two kind of nuggets of advice. Number one, you miss 100% of the shots you do not take.
Mm-hmm.
In life, in basketball, in baseball, whatever the case may be. And number two, and this goes in writing as well as in sales, whatever your profession is, be pleasantly persistent without being overbearingly obnoxious.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be hard for people too, just to be persistent too.
Without question. And it took me 40 years in sales and sales management to learn it.
Okay. Yeah. I just think sometimes people they don't have the support. Sounds like your wife was very kind and gave you the support, and some people don't, I don't know, what will people think, they get down, but you have to try. Like you just said about the shots, you have to try.
She's been my biggest supporter, as a matter of fact. After I published my first book, she made me a plaque and went to the local framing store and had a framed
Oh, that's nice.
certificate of excellence. And one other thing about Susan, not only is she helpful and patient, but I was able to put her journalism degree to work on both books, editing them for me.
Oh, wonderful.
That's excellent. So she was your editor.
Well, yeah, she was one of them. I had another set of eyes take a look, but she was my main editor, yes.
Great.
Did the Self-Publishing also have an editor? Did they provide an editor?
You can for a price, but
okay, separate price, okay.
In my mind, that defeats the purpose of self-publishing. If you want a traditional editor, you go out and find a literary agent and publish, with Simon & Schuster or some other traditional publisher.
Okay. Well, isn't it nice that there's these opportunities to do things differently?
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it's been a true pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to get started on the third one.
Yes, yeah. I bet.
Right. Okay, so Keith, we're just about out of time. I was wondering, what's the best way for our listeners to get in touch with you?
It's email, and my email, it's theguerns2005 @yahoo.com.
Excellent, and I'll put that in the show notes also.
we wish you luck on your third book, and it was very nice speaking to you and hearing about Susan and your father, two people who seem to be are very supportive. How nice for you to have these two people in your life.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Author Inside You podcast, and until next time,
right on.
Thank you for listening to the Author Inside You podcast with your host, Leah and Matt Rafferty.